Trying to use a new language in a real conversation feels like walking a tightrope. You plan the words in your head, you smile, you go for it, and suddenly the person replies in perfect English. You feel crushed, like your effort didn't count. You wonder if your accent was off, or your grammar awkward, or maybe they were just trying to help. But it still stings. That feeling of not being good enough. But here's the truth, every time you try, you grow. And here on Talknative, we share those moments, the cringy ones, the funny ones, the ones that stick, so you can learn English the way it's actually used in the world. Ethan had been practicing French for months before his trip to Montreal. Not Parisian French, Québécois French. He even took notes on local slang and pronunciation. He was ready to blend in, or at least not sound completely lost. On his second day in the city, he walked into a cozy cafe on Rue Saint-Denis. The barista looked up from the espresso machine and said, "Bonjour." That was his cue. Ethan took a breath and delivered his line, "Je voudrais un café noir et un croissant, s'il vous plaît." He was proud. The pronunciation wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrible either. He smiled, confident. The barista blinked. Then smiled politely and replied, in smooth, slightly accented English, "Sure. One black coffee and a croissant. Anything else?" Ethan froze. Not because he didn't understand, but because, well, wasn't that what he was trying to avoid? No, that's it," he said. He paid, took his order, and sat down by the window feeling deflated. All that effort. All that practice. For what? For someone to switch to English as if his French wasn't even worth replying to? He sipped the coffee and stared out at the street. Was it his accent? His grammar? Or was the barista just being kind, trying to make things easier? Later that day, it happened again. At a bookstore. At a clothing shop. Even at a metro station. Every time he tried to speak French, people switched to English. They were never rude. They were often friendly. But it still felt like rejection. On his fourth day, he found himself at a small outdoor market in Plateau Mont Royal. A vendor was selling maple syrup and speaking rapidly in French to a customer. Ethan waited, then stepped up. "Bonjour. Je cherche un cadeau pour mes amis aux États-Unis." The vendor smiled warmly. "Ah, vous parlez français. C'est bien. Alors, je vous recommande celui-ci, c'est très typique." Ethan nearly grinned. They kept the conversation in French the whole time. It wasn't perfect. He had to ask her to repeat a few things. But she didn't switch. She let him try. And that changed everything. He realized something important. Sometimes people switch to English to be helpful. Not to dismiss your effort. But that doesn't mean you should stop trying. Language isn't just words, it's connection. And when you insist kindly on staying in the target language, people often respond with patience. He left the market that day with a bottle of syrup and a renewed sense of confidence. Not because he had perfect French, but because he had kept going. Now let's break down some English expressions that came up in Ethan's experience. He said he felt deflated. That's when your confidence drops, like air leaving a balloon. People switch languages to make things easier, but sometimes it can feel like they're brushing you off. Those are natural expressions we use to describe emotional, everyday situations. When Ethan said he was trying to blend in, he meant he didn't want to stand out as a foreigner. These phrases, to blend in, to freeze, to feel crushed, to keep going, they're the kind of language that gives your English texture, feeling, and depth. So, the next time someone switches to English when you're trying your best, don't give up. Politely say, "Can we keep it in language if you want?" Keep trying. Keep growing. And if you're learning English, Talknative is the place to hear real stories from real people in real situations. Subscribe and tell us in the comments, has anyone ever switched to English when you were trying their language? How did it make you feel? Let's talk about it.